Welcome. Dr. Rick Marks here, another Rick's Remarks and a Relate Well moment. And I am joined by my colleague.
Hey guys, Lee Brown here.
And Lee has been working with us here at the office, and he's got a counseling practice. And Lee and I have decided to do some training videos together about things that we believe people need to have in their life and know to live healthy, thriving, just really loving relationships. I guess we could call it the abundant life.
The abundant life.
You know, John 10:10.
Absolutely.
To live out the abundant life, which is really the fruits of the Spirit, those kind of things. And so, I mean, when you think about living the abundant life, I mean, what kind of thoughts come to your mind?
Living the abundant life. I'm like, certainly it's not being miserable. It's certainly not being. I don't know. A lot of people like to think about just being happy, and how I want to be happy. I don't want to be unhappy. I want to do things that are pleasurable, things that I enjoy. But I think there's a lot more to an abundant life
Like your
than just
coffee
being
cup.
happy.
Like your coffee cup.
Absolutely.
Folks already know he's a 30-year military man and always has a coffee cup, because that's something about the military and, you know, your basic training or officer candidate school. I think it's a requirement you have to drink coffee. You know, and it's like a permanent fixture for you, I noticed.
For me, it's not the actual coffee. I think it's holding the cup.
Is it really?
That's what I need. I thrive when I hold a cup. No, not really. But part of that in life is that it's thriving. That's that abundant life that we're after, is thriving in life, doing what you do and doing it really well. But there's a lot of things that are in the background there that we really need in order for that to happen.
You know, one of the things that we've said in our work, Lee, over the years, is that the abundant life essentially is when you're experiencing the fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, and peace. But you only experience the fruits of the Spirit in the present.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you only have peace right here, right now, right? You only have joy right here, right now. And so it kind of begs the question, how does a thief rob you from experiencing peace right here, right now in this room, right? Because the abundant life can only be experienced in the present. And one of the things that we always say in our work is that to the degree, you know, that we're angry, that we're resentful and bitter and hurt and pain, you won't feel peace. Because you can't have anger and peace in the same moment, right? And that this negative energy will always overshadow or override the positive.
Yeah.
And to the degree that we're fear-based, worry, and anxious, you won't have peace. And it's really, you know, one of the things we've always said in our world, Lee, is that to the degree that you're angry, resentful, and bitter, and fearful, anxious, and worried, then you can't have the fruits of the Spirit, because they don't have it in the moment. So we have to deal with our hurts and pains from the past and have faith that God's got tomorrow, so that I can live in the moment, the abundant life heart. And of course, as you well know from our background and training, is that to the degree that you don't like yourself or love yourself, or you disrespect yourself, you know, to that degree it will affect your ability to live a thriving, healthy life as an individual and relationally, you know.
So are you saying that there's definitely a relationship to the degree of negativity that you have and to that you can positively express?
Yes, and particularly if you have your own internal self-talk that's negative, right? And you don't believe that you're good enough, that you matter, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, Scripture says, love God and your neighbor. Now, those are relationships outside of you, right? Yeah. The kind of the great commandment. The relationship to God is a relationship outside me. The relationship to others is outside me. But you also got to love yourself. Right. Ephesians 5 is, you know, a husband who loves his wife loves himself. That's your internal relationship. You see, so there are three relationships there: my relationship to God, my relationship to self, and my relationship to others. But if my relationship to self is not healthy, then I can't have a healthy relationship with other people.
Right.
So, you know, our work, we always say, you know, it's all about the us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in every us, there's the letter U. So the healthier that you are, the healthier us can be. Mm-hmm. And so what we want to do for those listening in today is kind of talk about the 4 essential questions that people need to have answered early in life. I mean, I always think you agree. It's an idea that these must be settled early in your life. And to the degree that these questions are answered in a positive way, you'll tend to thrive in your life and live the abundant life heart more than someone who's not had these 4 questions answered in a positive way. You know, any thoughts about that?
Right. And when these 4 questions, it's really interesting when the 4 questions that we're going to get to in just a minute, when they are met when you're young, then you really thrive to have that for the rest of your life.
Yes, you do.
And when they're not there, you may not know what they are, but you know something is missing.
Yes.
And you just crave for that and you want it. And you might even go on a lifelong pursuit searching, what is that?
Yes. And the 4 questions that are answered to those listening in, they're answered through relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the power. Yeah. Who I am in relation to myself affects my relationships, right?
Yeah.
But my relationships affect in a sense my relationship to me, right? So I grew up in a home where I was told you're never going to amount to much. You can't. Why can't you be better? Like it was all that kind of negative stuff, right? And so the message that I got from my dad and my stepmom was I had very little worth and very little value, but I internalized that as a story, that I wasn't good enough, that I didn't matter. Mm-hmm. And so what that did is because I incorporated this broken relationship, I internalized the message for myself. So now I don't have a healthy relationship to myself, which meant I became manipulative later in life. I was passive aggressive. I mostly was a child. And so I couldn't love well because I didn't even love and respect myself, you see, because my parents didn't know how. One, they didn't know about the 4 questions, number one, and I don't think that they got it answered for themselves either in their life. So they are operating out of a brokenness and not having these 4 questions answered in a positive way.
So these 4 questions, I know you're like on the edge of your seat right now probably thinking, I gotta know, what are these 4 questions? So let's not keep them waiting.
So you're saying, take us there.
What are the 4 questions?
All right, so here we go. So we're going to give them to you. They're right up here. We're going to kind of review them for you. The 4 questions that I believe every person has to have answered, Lee, are these 4. Number 1, am I lovable? Mm-hmm. We all need to know that we're lovable. Number 2 is we all need to know if we have value. Do I have value? All right. The 3rd one is, do I matter? I grew up in a home where I never knew that I mattered. I didn't believe I had value. And based on the things, particularly my stepmother would say to me, I didn't think I was lovable. And lastly, do I have something to offer? In other words, we all need to know that we exist in this world for a purpose. And that if I don't believe I have a purpose, then I don't have a meaning, And a lot of these people then will just exist. Or they become overachievers like I did. Right? I'm striving to become something of value and worth and matter, and I want a purpose. Couldn't believe I had one, so I become an overachiever. So some people become overachievers, and some people just quit, just kind of like give up, and all because these 4 questions were not answered. So why don't we just kind of take a minute and kind of talk about each of those in a little more, not in an in-depth way, because that's not the purpose of what we're here for, but it's to give you a sense of these. And you can, by the way, I would say to our listeners, those you're listening, I would encourage them, I'm sure you would agree, is, hey, as we're going through these 4 questions, ask yourself, how are these answered in your life?
Absolutely.
And then we're going to take you to the one place, and of course you and I know what it is, the one place, that if you go to this one place, it guarantees that you are lovable, that you have value, that matter, and that you have something to offer the world. All right? So let's kind of take the idea of, am I lovable? Am I lovable? I mean, think about it, Lee. If we believe we were actually lovable, I mean, what difference do you think that would make in our lives?
Well, to know that you're lovable, it changes everything for you. Because if you're not lovable, then for me, I can speak for me, if I knew that I was not lovable, I would just feel so very alone. Yeah. And that's one of the, I think, biggest struggles in our culture right now. So many people feel that they're alone, and I wonder how many people really feel like they're not lovable.
Yeah, Scripture in 1 Corinthians 13, as it goes to, we call it the love chapter, right? Mm-hmm. But one thing that is for sure about 1 Corinthians 13 is near the end, it says, so there remains faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is what? Love. Why is love so important? Because when we love someone, we send a message that they are lovable. When you don't love the message, you send the message they are not lovable. Mm-hmm. We all need to know that we are lovable, that there's something in us that people love, that we're lovable, that we're cute, we're cuddly, right? I always tell people I'm a harmless little fuzzball, right? Hanging out in your belly button or something. Who knows, right?
Oh.
Yeah, But the idea is we need to know that we're lovable, and and we know that because we're loved. But if you weren't loved, then what children's brain do particularly is that they internalize the lack of love, that they internalize that as, well, I'm not lovable. I'm not lovable. Mm-hmm. And we all want to know that we're lovable. Even me, that I'm 58 now, I need to know that I'm lovable to love. My kids need to know that, to me, they're lovable. You imagine dating someone and not believe that you're lovable, or being married to someone and the message is that you're not lovable? And it would beg the question, why are you married, right? We need that one for sure answered. And the scripture says, you are loved. You're fearfully and wonderfully made, right? And I love you. And there's nothing that I can do to keep Father from loving me. And I always say it this way, on my worst day, I am Christ in Rick Marks. 1 Corinthians, right? Why? Because I'm lovable. And we'll talk about why that is in a much deeper way in a minute. But we all need to know that we're lovable. Why don't you take the second one there, buddy?
Do I have value? To know that you're valued is one of those that, as you were talking about lovable, for someone to sow into you, to give of their talent, give of their time, give of their resources for you, that's huge in life, and that says you have value. People wouldn't give to something that doesn't have value, and they wouldn't be with you with something that has value.
Value almost has that sense of monetary economic thinking to it, right? You don't buy things you don't value, right? And some things have more value. In other words, buying Mercedes, right, has more value in it than a Yugo.
True.
From a monetary standpoint, right? And all right? But someone could actually say, well, actually, the Yugo has more value to me than the Mercedes. So, you think about it, value is something that somebody else puts on you. Because someone could like a Yugo. For those who don't know Yugos, there was a car that used to be sold back in the 70s or 80s here in America. Never really made it. It was made in Yugoslavia. All right? They were very small cars. But the reality is, for some people, they value their Yugo. And they would rather have a Yugo than a Mercedes. Now, in my brain, I go, why would you want that? Right? Because I ascribe more value to the Mercedes because it costs more, and et cetera, et cetera.
We never know what it is that someone values. And like you said, the value belongs in the one who was bestowing that, who was giving that. It could be something that, say my cup here. I could value this highly, and someone could say, it's just yeah, sure, it's a Yeti cup. Those are great, and all. But if someone that I loved, back to that first question, loved dearly, had given this to me, it would hold more value to me because they had thought enough to give that to me.
Yes.
And now the value in this is not really in the object itself, but in the relationship that it represents.
And how do you know how do you know what people value? It's really the way they treat it. You always treat the things you value much differently than you treat the things you don't value, right? I mean, you look at people who buy an old classic antique car, right? They take care of it, they clean it, they polish it, right? Because they value it. Same thing. If you are raising children and you mistreat your children on a regular basis and talk down to them, you just told your kids you don't value them. Why? Because the things that are lovable to you, the things you love, you don't mistreat. You don't mistreat them. But when you mistreat something on a regular basis, you basically say it has no value to me.
It's true. We
all need to know that we have value. We all need to know we have value. Now the third one is do I matter? Do I matter? This one connotes the idea that if I matter, you get involved with me. If I matter, you listen to me.
Yeah, this one really rings true with me, and personally, this is one that all four of these are huge, very important, and a big part of me thriving in life. But this question here, the third one, do I matter? Really, really is something that I don't know why. It just resonates deep within me. And today, if I'm driving down the road and Rebecca's sitting beside me and she's maybe playing a game on her phone or reading a book or engaged with something else, if I ask a question and there's just silence, my mind automatically runs to this: do I matter?
Yeah.
And the thing is, what's odd for me is when I do that and she responds right away, I don't necessarily jump to, oh yeah, I matter. But it's when it's not there, I wonder, do I matter?
Yeah, and you know, folks, if she answered your question by getting involved, answering the question, that would send a message to you what? You matter.
I matter.
So you always get involved with the things that matter to you. You don't get involved in things that don't matter to you. You know, I think about the spouse who's hurting and struggling and opens up vulnerably to their partner, but the partner doesn't listen, doesn't give attention. And then that person just gets quiet and shuts down, but they actually walk away with this thought: do I matter, or I don't matter to you? Because if I matter, you at least give me attention. Because if I don't matter, you don't give me attention. You see, we always give attention to things that matter to us. You know, I grew up and I would be hurting or struggling, and I was told, suck it up, get over it, be a man, but I was only 4 years old. You know, and what I learned from that was I didn't matter. I just didn't matter, you know. I remember when I was about 12, I had stepped on a nail out in our barn. We had 2 horses, and my stepmother looked at my foot. She said I was okay. About an hour later, still hurting. She told me it was all in my head. 2.5 hours, 3 hours later, it was really hurting. She spanked me for being, for basically causing trouble. But by 8 o'clock that night, the infection had gone to my leg, up to my knee. And the message that I picked up from that was I didn't matter. Because if I really mattered, she would have listened to me. If I really mattered, she would at least really listen to what I was saying. But she didn't have the ability to listen to what I was saying. And I was just convinced that I didn't matter. You see, we all need to know that we're lovable. We all need to know we have value. We all need to know that we matter.
Right.
And the last one is, do I have something to offer? There are so many people today who think they're just here to exist. This physical body is just taking up space in the world. And yet, what is that? Was it Joshua says, I have a plan, a purpose for you?
Right.
Right? I mean, even the scripture says,
Jeremiah.
Jeremiah.
29:11.
I got it wrong there. Thank you. That's why you're more of a better MDiv than I was. Yeah, I was a counseling student from seminary. He was more of a MDiv guy, right? And but I know the word. I just can't remember the references. That's my excuse, right? But we're told He has a plan and a purpose for us, right? Because we all need to know that we have something to offer the world. I remember I was growing up. I was always told you would never amount to anything. You know, that kind of thing. And I became an overachiever. So I got a PhD, 2 master's degrees. All of that really, where the little boy still trying to believe that he had purpose and that he mattered, et cetera, et cetera. Because none of those 4 questions were answered in a positive way in my life growing up. So I became an overachiever to try and get a sense that I was lovable. But the idea that I have something to offer the world, that I have a plan and a purpose, that I'm actually here because God has got me here for a purpose.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that our culture does to us today is they really leave that really ambiguous, and there's a question, do you have something to offer? And it ties back to the do you matter, do you have value? Because matter of fact, if we all started from just some blob in a primordial pool somewhere, that's a hard question to answer. Is there any purpose to it? Do we have any meaning? Do we have something to offer? But knowing that there is an almighty creator who absolutely loves you, created you lovable, and He created you because you matter to Him. He's involved in your life because you matter to Him.
Amen.
And He gives you something within you and gifts you and talents you to offer to other people, that we might enjoy this life and have it in an abundant life.
And abundance. I always tell people that I coach who struggle with what is my purpose? I said, you have to find your purpose. It's in you. God has given you purpose. And some people don't live in their purpose. You know, there is that old adage when it comes to the work world. If your passion, which I believe is your purpose, you know, what you're here for, if your work is your passion, you never work.
Right.
You know, I don't work, folks. I love what I do. I enjoy what I do. There's parts of what I do that I don't enjoy, and I'm thankful for Robin. And if she's listening, she'll know who she is. She keeps the books for me to keep me out of trouble. You know, I'm grateful for her. It's not my skill set. Yet, at the same time, that frees me up to be who I am and live in that passion, which is serving others and encouraging others and building other people up, you know, helping people heal and helping marriages thrive and families thrive. That's my purpose. Now, my purpose is not to go door to door, day to day, fixing people's plumbing. A lot of people work, but they're not working in their passion.
Right.
They're working for an income, those kind of things, and they never really fulfill or become aware of what's your purpose. One of the ways I always help people who I coach, I always ask them this question: if money was never an option, what would you do? We always think about a job in terms of income. But I go, if money wasn't an option, just put money aside. What an option, what would you do? One person said, I'd have a band. I said, really? Oh, I love music. You just see them come alive, right? Tell me about music and the writing.
Oh, yeah.
And I go, why don't you? And you see the drop in the motion. Well, it's because I got this debt and I got this, so I'm doing this, and they never really get to go live in their passion. And one of the things I always like about shows like The Voice or American Idol, they're actually finding people who are trying to live out their passion, what they have to offer the world, right? What do you offer the world? And the other thing I realize is it was my job to help my kids find their passion as a parent, to help them connect to their purpose. God has got you here for a purpose. What is it? You know, I love being able to help people find their passion, and then I love helping them go help build it, right? Kind of how you and I got it, right?
Yeah.
Say, what do you want to do? All right, how can I help you? You know, I think about Eddie J. You know, he was at a church where he's basically told, you know, you're an elder, but you do what he says, and this guy leads you, and you can't ever. And I said, Eddie, no. The way it is in the body of Christ is God's got a plan for you, right? The rest of us is supposed to help you achieve your plan. We're here. You're not here to do what he tells you. We're here to support you. And to this day, he's thriving and he's living in his plan, his purpose that God had for him. Yeah. You see? And that's what we're supposed to do, is help people find a way to live out the passion that God has in them. And so I think, you know, we come back to these 4 words, and am I lovable? Do I have value? Do I matter? And do I have something to offer? Now, sadly, Lee, when I grew up, personally, none of those were answered in a positive way. And what's really sad is I left home and joined the Navy and I was home, but I left home never really having those things answered. And what's really sad is I got saved right out of high school, and the church I was at, it said I mattered as long as. Did you get that? Oh, you matter as long as you come to Sunday school, you go to church, you do this, you do this. That's how my life was as a kid. I knew how to jump hurdles. And then I go into a church system that says, oh yeah, your value and worth as a Christian is also based on jumping hurdles. And fortunately for me, the Lord put me in the Navy as a chaplain's assistant. And you know, I always tell people my denomination is Navy Protestant, because in the military, as you well know, as a Navy military chaplain, we don't let differences in denomination divide relationship. We value relationship, and if you believe in predestination or not, or tongues or not, those are not issues to not have a relationship over. In other words, we let people know, hey, if you love Christ, that's okay, we're friends. Right. Why? Because you're lovable, you matter. All of those things. And what I had to learn in my life was, though the church kind of reinforced what I grew up with family, here's what I also learned. The cross itself, the fact that the Father sent his biological son to die on a cross for me, for you, and for you out there listening. I mean, think about it. Lee, would you die for something you hated?
I don't know.
Would you die for something that didn't matter to you?
Probably not.
Would you die for something that had no value to you?
Mm-mm.
The fact that the Father sent the biological Son, Jesus, to die on a cross for us on our behalf so that he can get us back home to him, that one act of history by the Creator declares that I'm lovable. It declares you have value. It declares that you matter. And guess what? Because all of that declares, that means he has a purpose for you. All you got to do is find the purpose. It's already in you from the foundation of the world. And for those who are listening, and I think one of Lee and I would say this to you, if you struggle with those 4 words, we believe the place you need to anchor. Is that a good word, anchor? Military guy, right? The place you need to anchor the answer to that is not what we say about you or what Lee says about you. It's what the cross declares about you.
That's right. So that's that one place. Early in this talk, Rick said he was going to tell you the one place that you could find that answer, and that's the answer. It's in the cross.
Amen.
And it's what God has to say about you.
Amen. So, what are the 4 questions? Am I lovable? Do I have value? Do I matter? And do I have something to offer the world? I don't just exist. I'm actually here for a purpose and a plan. And it's incumbent upon parents to answer those. God can use the church to answer those things. And let's be honest. If you're really good to a dog says you have a purpose. A dog says you're lovable. A dog says you matter. And a dog says you have value. And I'm not against that. But we need it from others, don't we?
Right.
It's the one another's of the New Testament, right? Mm-hmm. And we mostly get it. And you anchor that, the foundation of that thinking in what the cross declares over you. And when you can settle these 4 questions in your heart, when you can settle them, you actually move to peace.
Amen.
And peace is a really good place to be. So that's our thoughts today. We hope maybe in some small way it encourages you. And we would say this to you. If you've not settled these and you're finding a hard time doing it, and you notice that you're medicating the pain from it, or acting out in unhealthy ways, or going from relationship to relationship to relationship to get a sense of value, that's all what we say rat poison ways to get a need met. I would say, let us serve you, let us help you. Call me, contact Lee at leecounselingandcoaching.com. I get that right, didn't I? browncounselingandcoaching.com. Forget that, it's browncounselingandcoaching.com or drrickmarks.org, either one. And let us serve you and let us help you work through the negative message you picked up so you can replace those with the message that is true of you, even if you don't believe it yourself. So, this is Dr. Rick Marks with
Lee Brown.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you at another time. Bye-bye, y'all.